Would you rather be stuck in a forest with a man or a bear? What if those weren't your only choices? What about a leopard, a zombie, or a literal living tree? And the one you choose will help determine your survival in not just any forest, but a horrifying frozen wasteland. I've crunched the numbers and I have the answer right here. Hello Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that loves two things: overthinking survival tactics and waifus. And today, we have both of those in spades, thanks to the sponsor of today's episode, AFKJourney. They just released their new season update, Chains of Eternity, where you'll be exploring the icy lands of Cedar Town and White Ridge during the annual winter festivals. A relaxing time full of fun and games, which sounds delightful, until you get drawn into a mystery involving horrifying creatures, a millennia-old curse, and we're also stuck in a time loop we need to find a way to escape. If you want to survive, the town encourages you to follow their forbidden rules. The first of which is, do not go outside at night. And when you look at things, that makes a lot of sense. Between the freezing cold temperatures, the inhospitable and isolated landscape, and the freaking haunted snowmen, let's just say that if this were real life, I would definitely be following that rule. But of course, as the heroes of this game, we gotta break the rules to save the day. So the question is, who is best suited to that challenge? We're not playing as an average gamer, after all. We get to take control of dozens of epic heroes, all separated into four main factions. We've got the human but adaptable Lightbearers, the animalistic Maulers, the nature-loving Wilders, and the undead Graveborn, all with various strengths and weaknesses. If we send them out into the frozen wilderness with nothing but the clothes on their backs, based purely on science, could any of them make it through the horrid winter? There's only one way to find out. Stand back, everyone, because I'm about to release my ultimate move, massively overthinking fictional game worlds with science for the amusement of myself and others. Hiya! Let's kick things off by laying out exactly how we're going to do this survivalist challenge. There are three big challenges that these four factions need to be able to overcome. Firstly, they need to be able to survive the temperature. The Duchy of White Ridge is cold, like insanely cold. When I spoke to the dev team, they told me that White Ridge is based on places like Norway, and there, during the winter, you're dealing with average temperatures of -1 to -7 degrees Celsius, or 29 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. But records have also gone as low as -50 degrees Celsius, or -58 degrees Fahrenheit. So anyone that is naturally built to survive such a harsh environment is gonna have an advantage here. Next, you'll have to build shelter. If you've ever watched any of those survival reality shows before, you know that building a shelter is critical to getting a good night's rest. It helps to keep out the elements as well as other horrors that linger outside. And finally, our teams will need to find a reliable source of food. Food is what gives us energy to keep our bodies warm, boost our immune systems, and grow and repair ourselves if we get injured, which, given the sentient snowmen I mentioned, could be very important to keeping themselves alive. For each of these challenges, we'll award a score of 3 to 0 depending on how well they do. And at the end, we'll add all our points together, and whoever has the most will be the kings and queens of the cold. I'm also not including the celestial or hypogene factions. They're basically divine beings of good and evil. Cryonia is literally an ice deity, which felt a tad OP for this challenge. So without further ado, let's get started, because we have one heck of a journey ahead of us. An AFK journey, if you will. Sorry, I had to. It's literally in my contract. Normally, the easiest solution to surviving the cold is fire. Make a fire, stay warm, easy. However, most of these factions contain humans, or human-like heroes, and humans have been harnessing fire for millions of years with just the simplest tools, which would make this section feel pretty pointless. Plus, the harsh conditions make keeping a fire going outside near impossible, so even if they could start one, it might not help them out in the long run. That's why we're also not including magic in these challenges, because most of the factions have someone who can just produce fire from nothing, like Miriel from the Lightbearers or Satrana from the Maulers. And given that one of the forbidden rules in this chapter is about how fire should always be red, with magical fires tending to be green or blue, I don't think the locals would take too kindly to us using that magic to make fire to begin with. So if these guys have to raw dog the elements based on their biology, who's surviving the longest? Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Tom, didn't you say there were zombies in this game, the Graveborn? Surely they just win. They're undead after all. It's not like they they can die twice. Yeah, you'd think so. Canonically, these guys don't feel pain, but that doesn't mean their bodies won't have issues at these temperatures. Their bodies are still made up of the same stuff as you and me, i.e. water, and unlike living creatures who have a means of maintaining their internal body temperature, zombies don't have a working circulatory system, meaning the water in their bodies is stagnant and getting colder by the minute. After a couple of hours, those liquids will crystallize and cause rapid and substantial tissue degradation, causing them to freeze right in their tracks. Some of them are wearing clothing and armor, which may slow down the process slightly, but then you have characters like Valka who are wearing armor while exposing their hearts, allowing all of that cold to get all up inside them, freezing them even faster. They may already be dead, but they ain't gonna do anyone much good when a gust of wind shatters them to bits. Humans, on the other hand, do have working circulatory systems and can maintain some level of core temperature, though not for very long. We don't have natural fur, and some of our heroes didn't get the clothing memo that we were going to be in the sub-freezing wilderness. Looking at you, Lady Valor, our bodies are designed to operate with a core temperature of 37 degrees Celsius or 98 degrees Fahrenheit. But with temperatures like this, hypothermia will become a serious problem real quick. If your body's core temperature drops to just 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit, your blood pressure will begin to rise, you'll be shivering like crazy, and your liver can even begin to stop working properly. That's just 2 degrees Celsius of difference. After dropping to 32 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit, your reflexes will slow down, your speech becomes slurred, and your brain becomes confused, sometimes even suffering from amnesia. At 28 degrees Celsius or 82 degrees Fahrenheit, your body begins to shut down, and by 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit, death is inevitable. At these temperatures, with no food or shelter, or with outfits like these, it's only gonna take 2 to 4 hours to go from fine to graveborn. And if it gets as cold as the -50 I said earlier, death would arrive in just 30 minutes. So that's all the humans off the table, and that puts factions like the Lightbearers down a significant number of heroes. But humans aren't the only species this game has to offer. Many of the factions have animals in their ranks, and yes, I know they're mostly humanoid animals rather than actual animals, but as we're not really taking magic into consideration, it makes more sense to treat them as animals rather than the weird science of human-animal hybrids. Nobody wants to think about that. Sadly, the Lightbearers don't do so well in this category either. The only species they've got besides humans are hamsters, and they'd be lucky to survive an hour at those temperatures. In comparison, the animals from the Maulers are used to roughing it up in the desert regions of AFKJourney, which, if it's like the Sahara, can get as cold as -0.5 degrees Celsius at night. Not quite as cold as White Ridge, but at least they'll last a little longer than the humans for sure. The real ace up their sleeves, though, is Shakir. Shakir is a wolf, and they are built to survive months at temperatures as low as -50 degrees Celsius. This is thanks to a second layer of fur that builds up during the fall. This thick undercoat then traps the air to keep the wolf insulated, to the point where they barely lose any body heat. So while not all of their faction might survive the winter, some of them will definitely be amongst the last standing. The real winner, however, are the Wilders. These elf-like creatures have a symbiotic relationship with the natural world, and while you do have some animals that could survive varying amounts of time, like birds, rabbits, and goats, the thing that they have that trumps everyone are trees. And I don't mean the trees around them that they love so dearly, I mean literal sentient tree people like the hero Ulmus. Trees have adapted over millennia to basically survive anything the environment throws at them, and during the winter, trees do something pretty incredible. Yes, they lose their leaves, which is to preserve water, but their cells also begin to remove excess water from themselves to again stop them freezing. That water then freezes between the cells, protecting them from overexpansion with the cold, and actually providing a layer of insulation to stop them freezing. At this point, the tree will convert starch into sugar, which acts as a natural antifreeze, meaning, unlike the Graveborn, no damage is done to the cells, and the tree is kept alive all season. Below freezing temperatures ain't doing nothing to stop this guy. So after round 1, the Wilders walk away with 3 points. Thanks to their wolf and bear members, the Maulers survive a few months and walk away with 2 points. The Lightbearers make it through at least half a working day with 1 point, and the Graveborn freeze after a few hours and get 0. You may have noticed that last round I kept saying without food or shelter. Well, that's because those two things can massively improve your chances of survival. A shelter can protect you from the elements as well as whatever else is outside. There's a reason that do not go out at night is one of the forbidden rules after all. But building a temporary shelter out in the wilderness is not quite the same as building a house in a city or town where you have infinite time and resources. It's especially hard if your main resource is the thing you're sworn to protect. Yep, while the Wilders were on top last round, this time it's a different story. Almus, the tree dude, does not take kindly to people defacing the forest. According to one of his in-game affinity tales, Almus rarely loses his temper, except for the time when some thugs brought axes into the forest. So yeah, not really gonna be breaking down any trees for huts now, are we?
They do have Leica and Lawson, who are rabbit heroes,
And rabbits are known to dig their own burrows for shelter, but that's gonna be a lot of work for two people to dig a burrow deep enough to fit all of these animals and a literal tree. If they do end up digging a big hole, they may also run into another faction, the Graveborn. While these guys aren't like most zombies, they have intelligence and can communicate, you need more than brain power to build a shelter. Let me tell you, none of these guys were built for manual labor in their past lives. But on top of that, zombies are decomposing all the time. Their muscles are literally falling apart, getting weaker and weaker by the day. So building anything is going to be a bit of a challenge. I guess that's why they're all magic users in the game. They could try and follow their namesake and dig some graves, but I have a feeling they would say it was beneath them. Baby! These guys may be cold, but I am on fire today! The Lightbearers may actually have a better shot here. Humans have been building makeshift shelters for millennia. In fact, the first evidence of man-made shelter comes from 400,000 BC, using wood, animal skins, and even leaving a hole in the center so that smoke from the fire could escape. It's pretty incredible. And with all of those things being available in the wilderness, it wouldn't take long for the Lightbearers to be up and running. Not to mention that they have Hugin the blacksmith on their side, a crafting perfectionist with a plethora of tools at his disposal, meaning their tents would not only be practical, but it would actually be nice and sturdy too. But what about the Maulers, our animal friends? Well, from a lore perspective, the Maulers are used to harsh climates. They're also a group made up of many animals that will dig their own dens if necessary. But if they work together, they have something the others don't: the ability to work smarter, not harder. Instead of building a shelter, they have the instincts to find a shelter. Animals like bears, hyenas, lions, and leopards have all adapted to take notice of small details in the landscape and use those clues to find natural pre-existing shelters like caves. Wolves and foxes are especially good at this, as members of their own species or even other species will typically leave scent markers in their dens so that others can either sniff it out and join them or claim it as their own, even when visibility is low, like say in a snowstorm. They may not be doing much building, but they certainly will be safe. Like I said, work smarter, not harder. So after round 2, that's another 0 points for the Graveborn, with the Wilders just pulling ahead with an extra point. The Lightbearers come in with a solid 2 points, but this time I think the Maulers take the full 3, leaving the scoreboard looking a little something like this going into the final round. With all the camps set up, oh, looks like everyone has worked up quite an appetite building their shelters. But how will these teams fare in acquiring enough food to not only fill their bellies for the night, but for the long term? This is where the Graveborn finally get a chance to shine. Their undead, not working bodily systems works to their advantage. In fiction, you often see zombies eating brains or flesh, and the reason given for this over the years has varied wildly, from it providing serotonin to ease the pain of being a zombie, to simply being a way to show their loss of humanity. But rarely is it necessary to survival, and in the lore of AFKJourney, the Graveborn are the same, with no need for food. Now, if only they could figure out shelter, then maybe they'd do better overall. The Wilders also come out pretty good here. As I mentioned earlier, a large portion of the group are trees, or tree sprites, so they just get what they need from the ground beneath them. Most of the animals in their faction are also herbivores, and while it may be cold, places like Norway do have plenty of vegetation that has evolved to survive these harsh conditions. The human Lightbearers also benefit from this. As Amy likes to remind me, humans can indeed survive on just vegetables, much to Santi's displeasure. However, in this instance, it's going to be really tough for them. While there are plenty of plants for animals, there are very few plants that are edible for humans in this part of the world at this time of year. One plant that is edible would be lingonberries. Lingonberries provide around 50 calories per 100 grams, and since the average male needs 2,500 calories per day, that's a whole lot of berries. 5,000 grams or 11 pounds, in fact. For reference, the average lingonberry bush produces just over 500 grams or 1 pound of berries per harvest, meaning for each team member, they would need to scavenge 8 to 11 lingonberry bushes per day. That's up to 176 bushes per day total, which I think we can all agree just ain't happening, and definitely not quickly. So really, this category comes down to one thing: hunting for meat. The more meat a group needs, the harder it's going to be to sustain over long periods. It's not recommended that humans survive on only meat just from a nutritional standpoint, but there are some carnivore diets out there, and they suggest people eat between 1 to 2 pounds of meat per day. With 16 members, that's 32 pounds. Basically, a Thanksgiving Day turkey every single day. And with talented hunters like Marilee, Atalanta, and Walker, that's doable. It's just not as easy as the Wilders have it. The same, however, can't be said of the Maulers. Yes, every animal in the Maulers faction is a natural-born predator, but with lions and leopards and bears, oh my, the daily meat requirements are much higher. Combined, all of these guys would need to consume around 112 pounds or 51 kilos of meat per day. That's over 3 times more than the light bearers. It's not impossible by any means, it's actually just too dear per day. So I think I have to call this one a draw between the light bearers and the maulers. One of them needs a lot less food but has less hunters, while the other one needs more food but has more hunters. But it's easy to say that the Wilders take the second place spot, as the only carnivores they have are Lenya and Kafra, cat and eagle owl respectively, who only require 300 grams of meat per day. So that's 1 point for the light bearers and the maulers, 2 points for the Wilders, and 3 for the Graveborn, which means our winner and the best survival team is the Maulers. Congratulations, you've earned the prize of being my chaperone through this latest AFKJourney update. You guys have shown that you have what it takes to not only survive the cold au naturel, but you also have the skills to find food, even if you do need a little more than most, and save your energy by finding shelter rather than building it, allowing you to follow that all-important forbidden rule of staying inside at night. However, do you remember the second forbidden rule I mentioned back in the first challenge? Fires should always burn red. On the surface, that feels obvious. When you light a fire, it is typically red or orange. That is, until something else interferes with your fire. When different chemicals are burnt in a fire, they can change the color we see coming out of it. Potassium chloride, for example, makes the fire burn purple, while copper chloride makes it blue. It's actually very cool to see when it's in a controlled environment. But if you're out in the world and see a different colored fire, that is definitely going to be trouble. In AFKJourney, the fire we witness in White Ridge is green. Green flames come from burning copper sulfate, boric acid, or barium chloride, all of which are toxic to both humans and animals. If these flames are all over White Ridge, that would mean that these chemicals are all present in the environment, which isn't gonna go very well for our heroes. All of these chemicals would cause their kidneys and livers to stop working, their brains to fog up, and eventually their entire bodies to shut down. The wilder trees aren't safe either, as copper sulfate and boric acid are herbicides, killing them and stopping them from growing back later. If they somehow didn't ingest or breathe in any of the chemicals from the environment, once the fire starts burning, they'd be in even more trouble. Barium chloride, when burnt, produces chlorine gas, while copper sulfate produces sulfur dioxide, which again are also toxic, and they'll all end up in the air for our heroes to breathe on up. And given the size of these fires, I don't think they're likely to escape unharmed. The only ones that would survive this is, ironically, today's losers, the Graveborn. The chemicals may be an irritant if they touch the body, but these guys don't feel pain, and they're already decomposing anyway. They don't eat, so there's no ingesting. They don't breathe either, so there's not going to be any inhaling of anything, natural or burnt. I suppose this makes sense, given in the new update, the Graveborn are the ones responsible for the giant green fires. Use something that doesn't affect you while killing everyone else. Or, you know, the other factions could just fight their heroic instincts and not try to save the day. If they follow the forbidden rules by not going outside after seeing a fire that's not red, after a few hours, the Graveborns that caused it will cause their own demise and freeze to death. Maybe the residents here have always known that, and the only thing we're proving by breaking these rules isn't that we're heroes, it's that we're stupid. But hey, thanks again to AFKJourney for sponsoring this video. I have been hooked on this immersive RPG since the they sponsored one of my very first episodes. So when Lilith Games reached out and asked if I could craft some juicy theory ideas, I said yes faster than you can type out AFK in the comments. And while I wanted to focus on the science for this video, in their new episode, The Chains of Eternity, they've got new larger-than-life heroes, impressive visuals, and plenty of lore for us to chew on. Basically, the 3 easiest paths to my heart. And now is the perfect time to jump in and experience the game, because in this new season, everyone starts on equal footing. There's no need to worry about being left behind by experienced players if you're just starting out. So if you think you can solve the frostbitten mysteries and escape the time loop, or you just think you can last longer out in this frozen landscape than our heroes today, you can head on down to the description and click the link to download AFKJourney today. It's available on mobile and PC, plus if you use the code Chains of Eternity, you'll get 200 diamonds and 20,000 coins absolutely free. Thanks one final time to AFKJourney for sponsoring this video, and as always friends, remember, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.